You are now live. Here we are, waiting for Melissa from the Fully Mindful. We are starting up tangents and sidebars again. We are shooting for the third Monday of every month at 5:30 Pacific. Here we are, the third Monday of the month. Is it already the third Monday of February? Now I want to go back and count, but I believe it is. And we are going to talk about, there she is. We decided that we are going to talk about the elephant in the room. And it will probably be that topic, but different aspects of that topic for the foreseeable future. Hi, Melissa.
Hey.
I know how I feel that it's just weird to try and do business as normal or business as usual when there seems to be a dumpster fire happening in our government right now. So why not give us this outlet, all of us? We're going to actually talk about it instead of saying, it feels weird to talk about business, but I'm just going to talk about business and my offers. Like, why don't we just talk about it? And then we can, I'm not saying not to talk about business and your offers, because especially if you're in the wellness space, I feel like
we're going to talk about something orange.
I already said the orange elephant in the room.
It's like trying to do this. It's like, I'm just not going to acknowledge something orange in the room. For those of you who aren't watching, I have an orange sticky pad right in front of my face.
Yeah. Definitely colors everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. And I know that you and I have been sharing resources on how to stay engaged and also sane, which I'm sure we'll touch on continuously for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But I know we talked about taking a different tact tonight. And I was actually just talking to my daughter about the topic, and it was getting kind of exciting thinking about, we're talking about what are we fighting for? So we know a lot of what we don't want. What is it we want?
Well, and I think that's where so many of us have gone wrong in the past. We've been focused a lot. When I say we, I mean just kind of collectively, we have been focused on so much of what we don't want. We don't want Donald Trump. We don't want Elon Musk. We don't want these policies. We don't want these things. But we don't say what we do want. I'm not saying that we haven't said that, but we haven't focused on that enough. And we need to focus more on what we do want and a path forward to getting there.
And I think that is also going to help. It'd be another item on the list of what to do to stay sane during these crazy times. Because it's a little bit of almost like adjacent to a gratitude practice.
Yes.
You know, focusing on the things that we actually want. And then when you really start thinking about it, we were talking about these big policy type things. But then when you get down to it, there are other things like that we have more of a say right now. So if we start thinking more about the world we want to live in, and we can see where are the steps I can start taking right now in my personal life and in my community, that will start creating that world, regardless of what's happening in Washington or state capitals. I'm wondering if maybe 5:30 isn't the best time for me. I always feel a little, because I just had dinner.
Post-dinner sleepiness.
My brain and my mouth not cooperating.
Yeah, I get that. So, I mean, what came to your mind when you were thinking about this topic? When you were thinking, okay, I want to talk about Project 2029. Like, what are we talking about? And Project Now. Like, what can we make a difference about now?
Yeah, initially it's about all my favorite policies, you know, like universal health care, livable wage, accessible education. I personally think it needs to be free, but if they could just do something to make it slightly more accessible for everybody, that would be great. But then when I really started thinking about the personal ways, I have a podcast episode coming out about romance. And the fact that I was talking to my daughter, it was an easy thing for me to broach with her. But the way as women were kind of conditioned that this fairy tale romantic love is like the ultimate goal, to find a husband, to get married and have the white picket fence. What if that wasn't the main focus? And what if we focused more on community than the individualism that we are conditioned with in this capitalist upbringing. And yeah, so those were things we started to dissect community, because the other thing that I was thinking about when I was thinking about this list was innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't really innovate. Like, how, I don't understand, number one, how we haven't come up with a cure for cancer already. Like, I feel like there's something at play there. Energy, like the idea of this energy source. I was just reading about China is getting way ahead of us in the plasma. And this is also something I don't really understand. But like, there are a lot of really smart people in the world that could do a lot of really smart things. But my understanding, a lot of the industries that are in charge right now, I'm thinking oil, car industry, don't want those innovations, because they want us relying on driving our car from point A to point B. So like, no, we're not going to let you innovate new public transportation or high-speed rail. Or I know most of our utilities are privatized. So like, what is the incentive for you to come up with a cheaper way for us to power our homes? There's not going to be any money in it. So they're not going to lobby for those sorts of things. There's nobody lobbying for us, you know,
Right.
And that leads to then another policy type thing. Like, can we get rid of the lobbyists? Can we get rid of the money in government? Like, how do we get it so we, the people, have more of a voice that we can compete with the lobbyists?
How do we?
I had a couple ideas. It could almost be like a TEDx situation where you submit your 2 minutes of comment on a specific bill to your representative,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to review all the public comment.
Right.
Like, why can't we do that with our thing? And then they have to present a certain number of presentations from their constituents, maybe of differing ideas. There's got to be something
Right.
besides these high-paid lobby who are completely out of touch with what we actually want or need.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where we can make a really big difference is locally, because there are those forums, right? We have a right to go into our city council, right? They have a town hall and they have to listen to us, and they do listen to us. And you know, we're the ones who are going to be voting directly for them, right? There aren't any electors who are going to do that. And they don't get away with the same kinds of things that our Congress people might get away with. Right. We have more of a voice. So we really can make a difference locally, which I think eventually makes its way up. Maybe there is such a thing as trickle up. I don't know. But at least we can make a difference locally. Right.
Yeah. Which is helpful from time to time. But I just figure there's got to be a way. Like, we have a forum locally. Why shouldn't we have a say with the representative that we send to Washington? I know it's not practical that everybody would have a say, but to be considered, to be given a space, like, this is what we're going to talk about. We need your input by this day.
Well, and they do listen. People have been calling the representatives in droves compared to what they normally do, to the point where the phones are jammed and the emails are overloaded, and they are actually listening. And phone calls are more persuasive because it actually takes effort to pick up a phone and to wait and to call, and the people who answer the phone actually have to take it down and listen. And so they do. And so it does make a difference. So it does make a difference to be thoughtful, to think of what it is that you want, to call your representative and to say, even if your representative isn't representative of you. So let's say you're a blue dot in a red sea, you know, it doesn't matter. In fact, it probably matters more.
I was going to say, I would argue it matters more at that point.
Right.
I feel like I've called my representative a couple times, but I feel like they are representing me right now, you know? I wish they would be doing more.
I don't know what else they can do, but I wish they were doing more of it.
Yeah.
I kind of want them to be more activist. Like, I want them to do more than just what they can do in the Congress, for instance. I want them to be doing sit-ins. I want them to be blocking doorways. I want them to be breaking down doors when they aren't let into places they should be allowed into.
right? That one time when there was a group of them and there was the one guy blocking the door. I'm like,
Yeah.
how are you people not getting past this person? Just reach around him
and go in. Right. Have some chutzpah. Get in there.
Right?
Yeah. I want
feisty. Representative is the one that brought the dick pic to the floor. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
For those of you who are listening, the dick pic was it Marjorie Taylor Greene who inadvertently showed an actual dick pic?
Yeah.
And so Debbie's representative also brought a dick pic, but it was of Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, yes.
Speaking of which,
he's my representative personally. Robert Garcia, I think that's his name. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there are ways to get things done, and I know lawyers are doing a lot of work right now, and so
yes,
we want to get in with your local lawyers group. There's a Lawyers for Good Government group that people can support. I mean, those people are doing the work because the courts are really sort of the one area that we have left. And that can really make a really big difference, or at least we hope.
Oh, we hope. And we're like, we hope. They've kind of already alluded that they're not going to listen to the judges, but fingers crossed. And I'm going to try and get us back on topic because we've fashion tangents and sidebars. What are some of the things that you want? What are you fighting for?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce my 8-week Positive Intelligence program, the PQ program, starting February 25th to reduce stress, break through barriers, and tap into your true potential. With just 1 to 2 hours a week, you'll quiet inner saboteurs, strengthen your inner sage self, and build lasting mental fitness through live meetings, daily exercises in the PQ app, and powerful practices. Ready to transform? Set up a call with me today in the Calendly link in the show notes. We'll see you there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really nervous about climate change. And so I would really like to see a lot more done in terms of preserving the climate that we do have. Clean air, clean water.
That might fall under my innovation, clean energy.
Yeah, clean
like
air.
Actual clean energy. Now, this is going to get us off on a tangent, but do you consider nuclear energy clean energy? That's your personal opinion as a non-scientist.
As a total non-scientist, I mean, that seems like tricky, right? Because in many ways it is clean, right? It's clean air, it's clean water potentially, so long as none of it leaks out. As long as it does what it's supposed to do, yes.
And the byproducts of it do not go away forever. Yeah. So I'm like, how did that somehow get labeled as clean energy? I'm like, I don't think so.
So like in theory, yes, but in practice, no.
That was when we did have a president that was at least attempting to care about the environment. That was Obama. He was trying to get more nuclear. I'm like, wait, I'm not sure that that's the right path. Yes, I agree. The environment, very important.
That's where we probably need to start. I mean, I don't know. To me, and access to all of those things. And then it comes down to like social justice, right? Because a lot of different communities don't have access to some of those fundamental things that we do have access to. We have cleaner water, we have cleaner air, we have access to food, safe food, at least for now.
I know. That's what, as we're saying this, I'm like, oh yeah, how long is that going to last? Speaking of cleaner water, like, was Flint, Michigan ever able to get back to having clean water?
I don't think in the way that we would expect or want.
Yeah. And that's with the agencies in place that are supposed to be looking out for that kind of stuff.
Right. So that's what I
was hoping this would be a hopeful conversation, but I'm like, this could actually be really depressing.
It's hopeful because, we're looking towards something. It seems a little bit far off in the horizon, but I think maybe as we continue to have these conversations and we continue to look for actual solutions, I mean, right now it seems overwhelming because I say that stuff and I have no idea how to get there, right?
Yeah.
Starting here.
And that's true, like focusing on what we can control. And because as we're saying them, that of course my brain is throwing up all the obstacles because, my brain's really good at worst case scenario. Even even with the environment, what are the things we can do now? Like support the companies that are concerned about that, doing our best. We can continue to make good choices and not take a straw if we don't absolutely need one.
Right. We continue to pressure the companies that make these products not to make these products or not to use these products. I mean, it really does have to be done at a more global level. And we can praise, looking at it from a incentive side of things and a positive side of things. We can continue to praise and support those companies that are doing good things, right? Instead of those that are not doing the good things. We don't even give them our money. Our money is a very strong vote. Similarly, one of the other things that I really want to support is diversity, equity, and inclusion and belongingness.
Definitely something we can do every day.
Yes, and there are companies that are fighting the good fight and continuing to keep their diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness policies, despite the pressures to get rid of their diversity, equity, inclusion,
Are we just
and
see how many times we can say diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yes.
It's funny that you say that because I was actually thinking about that being one of my solo episodes coming up. When I was talking to my daughter, we also started talking about community and how we know it's important, but everything's set up for it to be more challenging. I know, like, we live in a really small, tight-knit community, but when she moved to the mainland, she was doing the typical American work situation. And I know you experience it, that you're back in the office, at least part-time, where you have to get in your car, drive a distance, work, then you interact with those people that you work with, and then you get in your car and you drive back to a completely different area. So really hard for her to develop any sense of community because she's not really in either of the places. And as I'm describing it, I was like,
it's almost like Severance. For those of you who haven't seen Severance, it's a must-see.
We could probably do a full episode on one of them.
We probably could. Well, yeah. And I mean, it's interesting. I had a kind of a debate with a colleague of mine who's very interested in going back to the office full time because she's under the, I think, misinformed idea that people will be less lonely if they go back to the office. And I tried to disabuse her of that nonsense because I've never been more lonely than when I worked in an office myself. So I can speak from experience. And I also know from studies that I have read that being with a lot of people has nothing to do with loneliness, whether it causes it or doesn't cause it. It doesn't do anything. It has nothing to do with loneliness.
I would say more the inclusion might help.
Yeah. No, but she is an extreme extrovert, like someone I have never met as extroverted as that. And so for her, she really enjoys her work community. Right. And so I was describing how I have developed a work community despite the fact that I mostly work from home and how I have been able to cultivate that. And so there are other ways to cultivate a sense of belonging without having to be anywhere in particular. It may take more effort, but you can still create a sense of belonging by reaching out to people that you work with on a regular basis and having meaningful conversations with them, both about work and not about work. And that does take effort.
Well, and I think that was the point, because it takes work, the community, and you can build community wherever you are. Like I know you and I are also part of a big or a pretty robust online community. Yes. We never meet in person, but we're still connected and supporting one another, and it's a community.
Yes, and it takes effort and it takes work, and it is absolutely worth it.
Or what I've come to is designing suburbs and cities to make it easier to have community and to connect with other people. We were also talking about how Europe is a Western capitalist, but they have a completely different way of living because they are walking, they are going to their little local markets and sitting outside of cafes and talking to people in their car, going to their cubicle, back in their car, getting their lunch through a drive-through window, like it's a completely different.
Or even the culture of phones. I mean, I'm not saying that Europeans aren't on the phones. They are, but it's different. They're not to the same degree that we are on our phones. You go to somewhere in France or Spain, and people are talking with one another. I mean, it's exceptional. Although I will say, my husband and I went to lunch today. We went to, there's a hotel in downtown Portland that has created a food court with a whole number of, it's like, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 different, almost like food carts with it, but they're inside. And the tables, you just have to sit communally, which I think facilitates conversations. Having this conversation with this couple next to us about they were eating Thai food, and they talked about how they ate this particular dish every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner in Thailand, what their experience was in Thailand. And it was very cool. And we'll never see those people again, but it broadens your experience, right? It diversifies your experience, right?
Nice. I like that you brought that in.
And I think, so creating those third spaces that are more like that are going to be fundamental in creating that opportunity for more inclusion and belongingness in our communities. Even if you never see those people again, it just makes you feel better as a human being.
Encouraging cities and planners to be sure to incorporate spaces like that.
And to do citywide things like, during the summer, they do a lot of events that are city sponsored. They're music events and parades and all sorts of things. And what does that do? It gets people out in the community together, and you start seeing some of the same people, and you interact with different people. And it's not only fun, but it gets you feeling connected to your community. And
so pay attention to what your Parks and Rec department is doing and get involved. I like that. So what did we come up with? Community, environment,
diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yes, big ones like, the healthcare for all and all that stuff. But like the little ways, the romantic love, not making that the be all end all. White picket fence is the goal for our young girls and young boys. But I think we want this to be a living list, right?
We want it to be, and I think the fundamental part too is that it takes effort. But it is worth it. Like, I think it's a 1 + 1 = 5 thing. It is not like, trudge. It's so much effort. It's like you take one step and you get so much in return. So it is absolutely worth it. When you go to your town hall, you go to your city council and you speak your voice, you feel heard. When you do something in your community, you feel a part of. And it is really important.
And I think that's a good point in the bigger picture. I know we wanted this to have like a positive slant of like, what are we fighting for? What is the world we're trying to build? But also we have to remember, we recognize that there's all this stuff going over here that we don't want. And that's going to take a little effort. Like, that don't be afraid to actually pick up the phone and call.
Right.
I was listening to Don Lemon on TikTok now. Did you know that he does his own news on TikTok and YouTube? So I was watching him, and he has some of his top tier supporters come on, and they actually do like Q&A. And he was talking like, did anybody go to any protests today? And this one woman piped up with like, it's not where I feel I can be most effective. I feel like that serves a purpose. And then so does picking up the phone and calling. She talked about connecting in her community, all the ways we can affect change, but it's going to take effort. And I know there's a big call for, some boycott type things to happen. And they're trying to structure them so it's not as much of an impact, right? The first one coming up is on the 28th, and it's just don't buy anything that day. It's one day.
Right. Don't buy anything from your larger big box supporting Elon Musk and Amazon and
but if you can't decipher, like, you could just don't buy anything. It's only one day. Like,
it's only one day, but it could also be, you could have a really negative impact towards small businesses. So I would say support your small businesses.
If you're going to spend money,
you're going to support your community if you support your small business, right?
Yeah.
But spend cash.
Yeah. So it's just one day, and small business or nothing at all. And I was going to say something, but I'm like, do I want to say this on the thing? Like, a lot of my small businesses in town are Trump supporters, so I'm like, I don't feel the need to support them.
I should say small business that you feel really good about and you feel comfortable supporting. I live in Portland, Oregon. It's pretty easy. I would say 95% of our small businesses are aligned with my politics.
The only place I would probably spend would be Vaughn's, and that's a corporation, so they don't need my money. So let us know in the comments if you're seeing this on Instagram. That's really easy. If you're hearing it on the podcast and you have an Instagram, jump over in the conversation there. If not, I'm sure we both have ways on our podcast to comment. And if you're new here, I'm Debbie, and I have a podcast called New World Normal.
And I'm Melissa, and I have a podcast called The Fully Mindful.
And what's going on with you for business as usual?
Well, my husband tells me I should be focusing on one thing. That evidently is not what I do. I have serious ADHD, and that bleeds into my business world. So I have a podcast, and I hope to have some new interviews out in the coming weeks. But this Thursday, which is the third Thursday of the month, which I do every month, so that is a normal thing you can rely on, I have free online breath work. And so you can catch that at Calm. You can sign up for it there. And then I also have in-person breath work in both Portland and in Hood River if you are local to Oregon. And then I am also launching an 8-week coaching course that starts February 25th. If you're interested, it's all based on the positive intelligence program, and it's pretty transformational and it's pretty awesome. So that's a lot coming up. What about you?
And I will say her breathwork courses are not to be missed. Never done one in person, but online is pretty spectacular. For me, I too should be focused on one thing, but try to do 10 things at once. Mm-hmm. Podcast is moving along, and I am working on getting my 12-week coaching program up and going. But before that, I'm going to do a live boot camp workshop, completely free, resilience in a batshit crazy world, because
that sounds just perfectly timed right now.
I feel like we can always use a little resilience, especially now.
Yes, definitely.
And we do this every month. Are we back to the third Monday of every month? So the third week of the each month is going to be busy for you, because you'll have tangents and sidebars and then your breathwork class. But that also works nicely because we can remind everybody about it here.
Yes. And I think I've got some people signed up, so I'm hoping more people will sign up. It is free, so, I welcome donations if you feel like supporting the breath work, which I think once people have it, they're like, holy crap, I need to support this. So there's your opportunity.
And if you're resistant to the idea of breath work and mindfulness, I heard this other creator, he was getting ready to teach a mindfulness class to, like, I don't know if it was like truck drivers or like someone that was not super receptive to the whole idea of mindfulness. And as he was walking in, he heard someone say something, fuck this. And so when he brought them in and taught the first breath, he's like, breathe in, F-U-C-K, hold, and then breathe out, T-H-I-S. So he taught them the fuck this breath work.
I love it. I love it. Well, I just saw the new Captain America last night, and it was really good. And the closing credit song is by Kendrick Lamar, and it's called I Love Myself, and it's fantastic. And I think I'm going to put that in the breath work. So, there's that to look forward to too.
Oh, I wish to say, like, I always love your playlists.
Yay.
All right. We stayed pretty on topic.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a month to talk about the orange elephant in the room. We'll share any new what are we fighting fors that we come up with or hear from listeners. And we'll think of another way to talk about this elephant in the room.
Yep. Awesome.
Sound good?
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.